12 days, Israel taking down a country that's 10 times its size, 70 times its population. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, people don't realize this. We took out their entire leadership. We took out their entire nuclear program with all the BS and CNN and all this garbage that they like to report. They're done. Their nuclear program is done, okay? We took out basically their ballistic missile infrastructure, not all of it, but the vast majority of it. We took out all of the nuclear scientists. Like, this is unbelievable stuff. And in 12 days, what about the thousands of rockets, missiles, and drones that weren't intercepted? They fall in empty spaces. Again, we hear this. We're like, oh, fell in empty space. Sure, okay, let's just go on with our day. Dude, this country is the size of my fingernail. What empty spaces? Where are these empty spaces? You know,
there was so much positive feedback from our previous interview that I had to get Hillel back on again. And Hillel, God, so much has changed. It's a new world since we last spoke. So much has happened. First to you personally, but also in regard to the war and the wars in plural that Israel's been fighting. And there's so much to talk about. And I love seeing your content on social media because you are so on the money. You are so sound and such a necessary voice in a world of such insanity. So thank you for all you do. For those who aren't yet familiar with Hillel Fuld, where are you? Do you live under a rock or something? Hillel is fighting the fight for Israel and was previously in business and tech, but now is focused on speaking up for Israel on social media and in the public sphere. He was actually banned from visiting Australia for supposedly being some kind of extremist. And honestly, the first thing I thought on a purely selfish note is, God, when am I going to get banned? Like, when's this going to start happening to me? Because, you know, it seems now that speaking up for Israel is some kind of criminal offense or some kind of condition on which one has to have certain views in order to enter certain countries. And this, by the way, isn't an Arab country. This is Australia. So I do want to talk about that. But Hillel, the first thing I want to talk to you about is what we've been seeing happening over the past few weeks, days, and hours. And let's maybe start off with most recently, which is the ceasefire proposal, which is looking like it's gaining momentum with Gaza. We're seeing that what's being reported is that there would be a 60-day halt, bookended with the release of 10 living hostages, along with 18 deceased captives handed over in 3 separate groups. And Hamas say they won't hold ceremonies. What do you make of this?
You know what? It's such an internal conflict. I'm so torn. You know, like on the one hand, we all yearn to see those hostages come back to their families. You know, those moments where they were united and they were embraced by their families were some of the happiest moments of the past 2 years. And so I think it's fair to say I speak on behalf of the entire Jewish people when I say, like, we have to see them back with their families. On the other hand, as a, whatever you want to call me, a political analyst or whatever you want to call me, I think, anything other than complete, victory over Hamas and all of our hostages back is basically, giving in. I mean, I don't want to say it's us losing, but it's a problem because we had very clear objectives. That's to, end Hamas and bring all our hostages back. And so, this isn't going to be an end to the war, I hope, but even a 60-day ceasefire. I mean, after 60 days, after 2 months of quiet and all soldiers at home and the whole country goes back to normal, we're going to go back into an intense war. I don't see that happening. It's kind of like when you have a business client and they're like, let's pause. We'll come back in 3 months. 0% of the time is it come back, right? So it's this cognitive dissonance that I speak about a lot because living in Israel just is accompanied by this cognitive dissonance. Like I speak about it with Ari, with my brother. Like on the one hand, losing your brother to terror is a terrible tragedy. On the other hand, what a source of pride that he's a national hero of the state of Israel. So it's like pride and devastation, So it's that cognitive dissonance. Same thing with this proposed deal. On the one hand, no, we should never sign a deal with the Satan and with the devil, no matter what. We need to end them. We need to get our hostages back, period. On the other hand, you know what? This is what's on the table right now. And it's far from perfect, but we need to get our hostages back at all costs. So all I have to say is I think what I said to you last time, which is I thank God every day that I'm not in Bibi Netanyahu's shoes.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know how he does it, honestly. Having the weight of Israel, the weight of the world on your shoulders, that man has been blessed with some superhuman strength. regardless of what you think about every decision he's made. Just bearing that weight of responsibility is insane. I do hear what you're saying, and I completely agree that Israel has a moral duty to make sure that Hamas is never able to do what it can do again. But don't you think that, just a few weeks ago, Netanyahu was talking about his only conditions for accepting a ceasefire would be to follow the Trump plan of relocating the people of Gaza. Trump himself was talking about that a couple of months ago. Like, what's happened with all of that?
I mean, it's not an exaggeration to say that the Middle East and the world changes from minute to minute. Like, it's just crazy to see. Like 2 weeks ago, we had, the Iran operation. Like, I don't think like most people understand that like in the last 21 days, the world changed. Like fundamentally, the world changed. Like for the past 2 years, many people, myself included, had our moments where I'd be like, is the IDF the same as the IDF it once was? Like, we can't beat Hamas. Like 6 days, we beat, armies, and the independence war, we beat 5 armies. Like, what? How come we can't beat Hamas? And so for 2 years, many people were like, maybe the IDF kind of lost its mojo, And then we go and we do this 12 days, we take down the Iranian regime. It's like, Right. So everything changes from day to day. Honestly, not to sound like a religious extremist, although that's what Australia calls me. At this point, I'm just like, you know what? We could analyze and psychoanalyze and overanalyze till we're blue in the face. But, man plans, God laughs, right? And so I have no problem, analyzing and talking and thinking. And at the end of the day, we see over and over again that God is running the show right now. And of course, I don't know if you want to get into this topic, but like, the theological question is, well, why did God allow October 7th to happen? Why does God? I don't know the answer to those questions, but I can tell you one thing's for sure. And that is that this war, from beginning to end, makes no sense. And so it's pretty clear, and this took me months to internalize, that none of this makes any sense. This is not a man-made war. And for the first 6 months of the war, I would bang my head in the wall every single day. But then I'm like, you know what, Hillel, you're looking at this all wrong, okay? Because there's nothing about this war, and I mean that literally, and we talked about it last time, but there's nothing about this war that is not miraculous. When I say miraculous, it could be, negative, maybe miracle is not the right word, but negative, consequence or a negative event that makes no sense, or the positive events that are miraculous. So yeah, again, we're doing this proposal now, apparently, although that's not even confirmed. It will change in an hour, right? Like in an hour from now, Trump might want to have one of his like, whatever you want to call what he does once in a while when he just like blurts things out, right? He might have that in an hour and be like, nope, we have to finish Hamas. And then that will be the end of that. So, I really don't know. Honestly, the answer to that question is, I just don't know.
Yeah. And you're right. And also in terms of the people itself, the people of Israel, the miracle there, that, regardless of how one thinks this war should have been fought and to what extent one has to let the hostages, negotiate and potentially compromise Israel in certain respects. The fact is that Israel's been fighting this war for nearly 2 years, and many people were saying there's no way Israel will be able to keep going at that rate, have this war of attrition to be able to, juggle this with economic needs and having a war on multiple fronts. And yet here we still are. And look at all these hostages that have come out as well. Yes, of course, deeply psychologically scarred, but you'd expect them maybe to have to just like take a break from the world, and yet they're going around the world, standing up, speaking, giving everyone else encouragement, and reclaiming and
redrafting,
getting back to but also like getting back in touch with their Jewish souls came out so much in this period. Like, how does that happen when you're facing so much suffering and horror, and yet you want to lean into your Judaism? Like, we learned about like the greatness of the Holocaust generation and the first generation of Israel. And as you said, like the miracles, we're seeing this greatness today as well.
100%. 100%. I think, the media, especially in Israel, likes to pretend or portray that we are like this divided country and we all hate each other. And yeah, there are disagreements, don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, like, we're way more united than we are divided. I always say that if you took an ultra-Orthodox Jew from Bnei Brak and an ultra-Orthodox secular Jew from Tel Aviv, and you put them in a room and you gave them a list of 1,000 core values, they'd probably agree on 980 of them. But the media focuses on the 20. And I get it. It's natural because poison and hate sells and peace doesn't sell. I get it. But at the end of the day, we are a country a nation that defies logic. We are resilient beyond anything that we've ever seen in any nation. And at the end of the day, my perspective on this, and this is something my father told me recently that I really loved, which is the question of like, how come we can't beat Hamas? 2 years, what happened to us? Whatever. And my father said he heard from someone. I love this. That's not the right way to look at it. When in history have the Jewish people been able to fight back and defend themselves for 2 years? We have the ability for the first time in history to fight and defend ourselves for 2 years. I mean, that's unbelievable. So I guess it's a question of perspective,
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny you mentioned that as well about like, Israel's not as divided as portrayed. I was interviewed by, I don't know if you know this presenter in America, Jason Whitlock. He has a show in America on Blaze TV, and he's a Christian. And we were having a whole debate about, is Israel God's chosen nation? All these kind of discussions. And it's very theological. But one of the things he said was, you say that Israel is meant to be like this light to the world, but I look at Israel and it's this sort of what I see as a kind of far progressive society that is divided and it's not practicing. And I said, one sec, I think that you're seeing a certain element of Israel that's highly magnified, but you've never actually been there. And actually, if you go on the ground and you see the grassroots, and also specifically in the last few years, we're seeing a revival of people reclaiming their Jewish identity and heritage, but also there's so much of the values that underline us. There is a huge amount that connects us. And also a further point, it's not unsurprising that after 2,000 years of exile and tormented persecution, there's going to be some people who go astray a little bit or are a bit disconnected. But the spiritual and moral resilience we've shown in this war and in our short history has been remarkable.
Right. And I agree completely with what you're saying. And we have to remind ourselves time and time again, for me, it's on an hourly basis, that the media lies. And some of them lie because they're evil, but most of them lie because they need clicks, they need relevance. And we know what gets clicks, right? But at the end of the day, if you look at the actual data, there's never been more Torah learning in the history of the Jewish people than there is now. There have never been more yeshivas. There's never been more religious people. And even the ones that are not religious, people don't talk about this, but like, I don't know the number, but I would imagine over 90% of Israel does Pesach Seder or, goes to Shul on Yom Kippur, whatever. Let's not forget that at the end of the day, at our core and at our roots, we are a nation that very much respects our heritage and our tradition. And yes, there are disagreements, but those are the exception to the rule, not the rule.
Absolutely. So let's talk a bit more about what we've seen over the last few weeks now with Iran, because the miracles and what was achieved. I mean, I remember first seeing the news in the middle of the night that Israel went in and hit Iran and then got all these senior IRGC commanders straight away. And like my heart was racing beyond measure. And it was just an astonishing time. And what we've seen this is 67 Entebbe level stuff. I wanted you could you unpack what we've seen?
Yeah, I think, first of all, we don't know the half of it. Over the next couple of years, we're gonna learn more about what actually happened that night. And I woke up in the morning and I'm like, what? We attacked it? Iran? What?
I'm so excited to share with you something that I've been working on for a while. We've just taken JTV content to the next level. Introducing JTV Plus, a new platform streaming exclusive content created and handpicked by me. Get ready for jaw-dropping documentaries, exclusive interviews, insider access, and so much more. JTV Plus brings you captivating stories that will shock and inspire you. Stories that, honestly, I'm discovering for the first time too. From Israel to Jewish history to Judaism, it's all there. In exclusive interviews, you'll hear guests open up about things they've never shared publicly before. Plus, I'll take you behind the scenes where I get a lot more personal with you. By joining JTV Plus, you're not just joining an exclusive community, you're partnering with me to help JTV reach new heights. Just search j-tv.plus and join our exclusive community today. There's a link in the video description. I'll see you there.
Just boom, the whole world changed, But for starters, the deception that everyone talks about, what Israel did, the lengths that Israel went to deceive Iran so that they wouldn't be ready for that surprise attack. I mean, for example, Netanyahu told his ministers that no one is allowed to talk to their wives or anyone about the upcoming attack, which, okay, makes sense. But one of the minister's wives kind of sensed that something was up because he was having all these late night meetings, and she's like, what's going on? He's like, oh, it's about the Gaza war. And after all these meetings, she said to him, this isn't about the Gaza war. Is this about Iran? He's like, no. So Bibi picked up the phone personally and called his wife and said, Iran? You think I'm strong enough politically to attack an Iran? What are you, crazy? Like, he had to convince her, and like there's rumors, and I can't confirm this, there's rumors that the whole drama that we saw in the Knesset the week before, that the ultra-Orthodox party was going to bring down the government, that was part of the deception as well, so that Iran would think that Bibi's too weak. But there was also Bibi's son's wedding. Iran was like, he's not going to attack right before his son's wedding. Well, it was all part of the deception. So, there's that. And there's the phone call that Israel made to the senior leadership of the IRGC saying to come to a certain place to have a meeting. And then they bombed that meeting and killed everyone, right? I mean, it is unbelievable. Like you said, Entebbe, this is Entebbe level stuff. But that aside, I mean, 12 days, Israel taking down a country that's 10 times its size, 70 times its population. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, people don't realize this. We took out their entire leadership. We took out their entire nuclear program with all the BS and CNN and all this garbage that they like to report. They're done. Their nuclear program is done. Okay. We took out basically their ballistic missile infrastructure, not all of it, but the vast majority of it. We took out all of the nuclear scientists. Like, this is unbelievable stuff. And in 12 days, like, people don't realize this, but I feel like this is an ongoing trend, or something a pattern, I should say. And it's an understandable one. When you're in it, it's very hard to see the miracles, right? I mean, at the splitting of the sea, we know that, like, the Israelites didn't jump in. They're like, the chariots are behind us, the sea is in front of us. God, what did you do? And you would think that after everything God did for them, they'd be like, okay, clearly God has our back. But no, they didn't jump in because they didn't recognize the miracle. So same thing now, everything that's happening, pretty much without exception, from the things that we take as trivial, like the Iron Dome, which is a miracle. The Iron Dome is a miracle. I mean, like we saw the other day, the Arrow taking out a ballistic missile from Yemen outside of Earth's atmosphere. We took out a ballistic missile in space. Like, you can't even make this stuff up, right? And we all just like, oh yeah, we took out a ballistic missile in space. So what's for dinner? Dude, like, why are we not like sitting all day, every day, looking and being like, Hashem, thank you? Like, it's crazy. It's just crazy stuff. Yeah. It reminds me of a famous video, probably the funniest video on the internet, of Louis C.K., the comedian. I don't know if you've seen it, but I highly recommend you watch it. It's called Everything's Amazing and Nobody's Happy. And he talks about technology, and he's like, we're on our phones, and we're like, okay, it's not moving fast enough. He's like, dude, it's going to space. Would you give it a second and come back from space, And he goes, the newest thing that I know of, and this was years ago, is fast internet on planes. He goes, I get on a plane and I'm on YouTube in the sky. And he goes, then the internet breaks down, right? And the guy next to him is like, this is BS. He's like, dude, how quickly the world owes you something that you only knew existed 10 seconds ago, right? He goes, we're flying on a plane. He goes, I'm sitting in a chair in the sky. He goes, every person should be sitting on every plane, the entire flight yelling, oh my God, I'm flying. Like, it's crazy. And so these miracles are happening all around us. And we're just like, yeah, let's go on with our day. This is crazy stuff happening. Crazy.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely agree. And, gosh, maybe the miracles are going to have to get more and more extreme for us to open our eyes.
I don't know if that's possible. I'll tell you the truth. I don't know if that's possible. I mean, again, we've talked about this, but like, forget the Iron Dome, forget David's sling, forget the arrow, forget, the iron beam, forget all that. Okay. Let's say somehow Israel's, technological superiority, we were able to pull that off. Fine. Put that aside. What about the thousands of rockets, missiles, and drones that weren't intercepted? They fall in empty spaces. Again, we hear this. We're like, oh, fell in empty space. Sure. Okay. Let's just go on with our day. Dude, this country is the size of my fingernail. What empty spaces? Where are these empty spaces?
And also that hospital where all the people were evacuated.
Exactly.
Just a day prior to the rockets.
I just got a message I'm going to read to you right now because this is just absolutely crazy. I was reading about the jets that took off from our bases. Let's see if I can find this message. And I was talking about how the jets. Here, I'm going to read this to you. Okay. Miracles from the Air Force, a story by someone who says he verified the details with a friend who was present at the event. A technical miracle at the Air Force Base, F-35 and F-16 engines returned from battle without needing repairs. This past Shabbat, after morning prayers at a synagogue in Israel, one of the worshipers, a senior engineer at an Israeli Air Force base responsible for maintaining F-35s and F-16 engines, shared an extraordinary occurrence from the recent conflict. According to him, technical teams had prepared in advance for heavy engine wear that would wear out due to the extreme stress of long-distance flights and threats from Iranian air defense systems. Emergency teams, spare parts, and replacement engines were on standby. There was concern that some aircraft wouldn't make it back due to engine failure. However, when the first planes landed and were inspected, their engines were found to be in perfect condition, as if they had just come out of maintenance. Computer diagnostics confirmed the manual checks. In the end, only about 30% of the planes required routine maintenance, not in line with their high flight hours. The rest continued operating with no significant repairs needed. During the 12 days of fighting, around 200 aircraft operated nonstop. Not a single one crashed due to technical issues. No major malfunctions occurred. According to the engineer, when the data was presented the morning after the operation ended, the professionals were astonished. The base commander, himself a fighter pilot with a secular left worldview, summed it up in just 3 words. Guys, there's a God. Like, this is splitting of the sea level stuff. There is no way to explain anything. It's crazy.
And then the other thing is that when people say, well, you know, it's just Israel's genius, it's Mossad's genius with the pages. Of course there's genius, which we thank God for blessing our intelligence services with. But everyone knows. I just watched this Netflix documentary about how they got bin Laden. They rehearsed it 100 times. They rebuilt his complex, and yet still things went wrong. The helicopter crash landed, all these things. Things go wrong. Right. You can when you plan this a tea party, things go wrong. So how much more so in this? And so, like, without the blessing of the divine, it's like,
yeah, but you know what? Let me tell you something. I agree with what you're saying, but let's just take this as an example, right? And again, I know we spoke about this, but it's important and worth mentioning again. So Israel, high level, we have 3 basically aerial defense systems that are really operational and successful, which is, of course, the Iron Dome. Above that is David's Sling, and above that's the Arrow, right? And all 3 of these, independent of the others, is a technological wonder. Like, again, I call it a miracle, call it whatever you want. But the 3 systems were built independently and were never designed to work together. They weren't built to work together. Those nights before the Iran operation, a year ago, when Iran attacked those 2 nights, these things worked perfection. Like, they worked, like, even the people who operated them said, we did not expect them to work that well. Just think about the fact, this is the craziest statistic in the world. The Iranian drones that they fired at Israel, 100% of them were intercepted. 100%. My phone doesn't have 100% success in its technology. Like, what kind of technology has 100% success? 100% of the drones were detonated, and out of the 475, 500 ballistic missiles, each of which, as we saw, has the potential to kill thousands of Israelis, and they fired close to 500 of them. 28 people killed. Now, don't please misunderstand what I'm saying. That's devastating. 28 lives, 28 worlds. But let's take a step back here for 1 second. It should have been 2,800 or 28,000, not 28. And so, of course, we mourn our losses. There's no question. We'll remember them, of course. But, like, we have to look at this and be like, holy cow, how is this happening right before our eyes? It's wild.
And we also have seen that Prime Minister Netanyahu, who perhaps didn't always use such spiritual language in the past, we now saw that he went to the Kotel, to the Western Wall, right before.
That was part of the deception too, by the way. That was part of the deception too, because
Why?
I think the president of Argentina was in Israel, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Right? And Netanyahu, I think he might have actually invited him. I'm not even kidding right now. He might have actually invited him to Israel so that he could go with him to the Western Wall. Because if Netanyahu went to the Western Wall by himself, it'd be like, why? What's he praying for? But he kind of disguised it under, okay, I got to go with the Argentinian president. And he went, but in reality, he went there to pray because just I think hours, maybe days later, I don't remember. He attacked. Yeah. So Netanyahu.
But then he went. And then he went back and he's quoting scriptures and he keeps saying, this would not have been achieved without Siyata Dishmaya, without the help of heaven. He sees it, doesn't he?
Yeah. Oh, because he knows how improbable, how impossible the things that happened, how impossible they were to happen. They should not have happened that way. Like you said, and everything, there's always something that goes wrong. Nothing went wrong. You said, they didn't have any practice. It was like from day to day, boom, they took off. They took out an entire regime. 12 days. I honestly, I just feel like sitting, like I said, every single day, just being like, God, you are amazing. It's just crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. And the ceasefire, though, with Iran. separate to Gaza with Iran. What do you make of that? This idea that we getting so close to potentially toppling the Iranian regime. Ultimately, they're going to rebuild, aren't they? What do you make of this?
I don't agree with you. I think, first of all, I don't think it was an objective of ours. I think Netanyahu made it very clear that if there's going to be an overthrowing of the regime, it will come from within Iran, and it's not our job. And Trump said that too. It would have been nice, of course, it would have been nice, but that wasn't an objective of the operation. The objectives were clear: to take out
destroying all their missiles,
right, and removing their nuclear threat, right?
Of course. But Trump stopped him from getting all these further missiles that were also an existential threat.
Okay, I know. And I'm sure they could have taken out the supreme leader. And I don't think it was a question of being afraid to do it. I mean, we saw him taking out Nasrallah, even though everyone said that would cause World War III. Our friends, Tucker Carlson and Candace, like to scare everyone. Oh, World War III, shut up, right? Like, enough with that already, right? But I don't think it was a question of being afraid to take out the supreme leader. I just don't think it was an objective of ours. And will they rebuild? They'll try to rebuild, but we have air superiority. We know exactly what goes on there. It's not like we're going to allow them to rebuild their nuclear facilities. That's not going to happen. Neither will Trump allow it. So I'm not too concerned about that. And I'm also not concerned with all the lies and deceit, CNN, BBC. Oh, we really didn't do anything and only pushed them back a few months. Shut up. Like, we destroy their nuclear facilities. So they don't even if they have uranium, they don't have the facilities to build the bomb. And even if they had the facilities, which they don't have the scientists to build the bomb. Like, we destroyed their nuclear ambitions. I mean, not ambitions. We destroyed the nuclear program. They are no longer an existential threat to the state of Israel. And that means we accomplished our mission. And they can lie to their people all they want. It's gotten to the point that it's comical. I don't know if you saw Yusuf Haddad, who's an Arab activist, stood in front of Israeli towers, right? The towers in Tel Aviv. And he plays a propaganda video that the Iranian regime played for their people, saying that they destroyed the Israeli towers, that they showed them on fire. So he's standing in front of the Israeli towers playing that video, and he goes, so here, there are only two options. He says to the Iranian people, or the people that are buying the propaganda, he says, there are only two options. Either you're a fool who fell for propaganda, or they rebuilt these towers in 2 days. And they lie to their people. It's so ridiculous. The fact that anyone would believe the AI videos that they share, it is just hysterical. It's hysterical.
It just shows how the Jew hatred is just a mental illness. 100%. It's a fantasy. It's a dark fantasy. That's So
mental illness can be cured, though. Jew hatred can't be cured.
You think Jew hatred can't be cured?
No.
Interesting.
The real Jew haters. Like, I'm not talking about a person who's lied to and believes certain things that were committing genocide. I'm talking about the real Jew haters. Like, you can't cure that. I mean, no one's gonna cure Candace Owens. I mean, she's just become a full-blown anti-Semite. I don't know what happened there, but like, you watch some of her old videos and she made a 180. It's just bizarre. But no, I think real Jew hatred, can't be cured.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it's like the ones who are so deeply poisoned, there comes a point where they're just beyond the pale. Yeah. But you weren't at all like concerned about the little kind of spat that Trump had with Netanyahu in the aftermath when Bibi wanted to keep going during the hours before the agreed ceasefire? That didn't concern you at all?
It did. And then I went back to that thought that I mentioned before, which is, what are you getting upset about? Like, God's running the show. Okay, I would have liked Trump to been more supportive, but in reality, we've never had more support in the White House across the board. So okay, a few things that he said, like when he compared us to Iran, and he said he's not happy with either one of them. Like, I was like, are you serious? He said a few things and done a few things that annoyed me, but to expect it to be perfect is unrealistic. He was pretty close to perfect, so I'm pretty happy with it.
Yeah. And let's talk a little bit about what we're seeing happening on the American right at the moment, because I'm seeing more and more of a divide growing about how they feel towards Israel. You mentioned Candace Owens in particular. My sense from her is that in her case, it's kind of religious. I don't know whether she started with the Jew hatred and then pins it on the religion or not, but I think for her, it's quite a religious thing. And there seems to be now this growing divide and questioning on a lot of their support for Israel was based on a biblical interpretation. And now they're starting to say, hold up, maybe we don't agree with that anymore.
Yeah, it's, like the only things that the extreme left and extreme right have in common is the Jew hatred, right? But, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and yes, Piers Morgan, as far as I'm concerned, they've just lost the plot. They've lost the plot. I mean, I don't know, and we saw Piers Morgan got angry at Shickley this week, one of the MKs, for saying that he's an anti-Semite. Really?
Yeah.
I mean, look at the people that he has on his show. I mean, if that's not an anti-Semite, then what is, right? I think what you're saying is true, that it was a religious thing, that those who bless Israel, will be blessed, blah, blah, blah. That's true. And we still see that. I spoke to several Christians this week who said that to me. In fact, Mike Huckabee said that. Ambassador Huckabee said that to me. He goes, I owe my faith to you. That's what he said to me. But then they're the crazies that, they, what did Candace Owens say? She said, oh, they're the chosen people that are, murdering kids and snipers, like, just the lies are like, and again, I know, sorry to sound like a broken record, but you don't have to argue about facts. Okay, forget, you could believe whatever you want, I could believe whatever I want, but you can't contradict yourself. If you're telling me, that Israel is committing genocide, then why isn't Gaza flattened? Because we know Israel's strength. We know what Israel can do. So if we're committing genocide, why are we not committing genocide? Why is there anyone living in Gaza? And if we're starving them and there's no food in Gaza, then how are you claiming that you're feeding the hostages? So
it's completely illogical, the whole thing.
Yeah, I'm saying, if you're talking to a person who has the most basic level of integrity, you don't have to be a good person, but if you're contradicting yourself, you should ask yourself, maybe something about your narrative is a little off.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned Piers Morgan. I saw that he blocked you recently, so congratulations for that. A lot of people are certainly on the pro-Israel side getting increasingly fed up with Piers Morgan, because he is someone that at the start of the war seemed very fair and reasonable. But it's become clear to me, and I've saw this truthfully even before October 7th, that he's kind of, it seems to be, and I really don't like to get into personal attacks, but I'm just talking about how he is as a presenter, someone that basically jumps on the fastest train in town. And so when he sees the train going a certain direction, he'll appease that crowd. And then when it's going another way, so he did this with COVID, when everyone was saying mask up, vaccinate, he was like super extreme on that. And then the second people started getting skeptical about lockdowns, he suddenly jumps on that train and thinks, maybe. And I think he's doing the same kind of thing here.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw what happened this morning, but what happened with Pierce is that his team emailed me to come on the show, and I happened to have been traveling that day, so I said I can't. And then he basically took to Twitter, and we were going back and forth on Twitter, and I was, just proving to him that what he's saying, like, what you're saying makes no sense, and I kept winning the debates, and eventually he blocked me. So the other day I posted and said, Piers Morgan not only blocked me, but he was calling me names and blah, blah, blah. And then I showed the email from his team saying, look, they invited me on. I said something like, he should probably notify his team that, I'm this person who, whatever. This morning on my Instagram, he went and he found that post, because I posted that days ago. Somehow he went to my Instagram, found that post, and he's like, this was a year ago, you indigenous. Like, he started calling me names. And I'm like, dude, what are you, 4 years old? Like, he's just lost it, And yeah, I agree with you that he was kind of an opportunistic guy that just, like you said, jumped on the bandwagon, whatever's popular then. But I actually think he's now become full blown. Yeah, he hates Bibi. He hates Bibi, and maybe it stems from that. But the things that he has people on his show saying, I mean, that Dan, whatever his name guy, like, these are sick people. Yeah, how do you justify giving a stage to a person? That guy's not. He's not even hiding it. I mean, he's a full blown Hitler. Yeah. Like, he's a Hitler. That's what he is.
Yeah, and when he says, well, I bring them on to challenge them. I'm sorry, but look, in the case of Candace Owens, for example, Candace will say all kinds of heinous things on his show, and he'll just listen there, and he'll move on to the next subject.
Yeah, and thanks for having. I'm so happy to have you on my show. He says, like, are you the things that she said? Like, forget Israel for 1 second. Like, I don't know if you saw her newest thing, right? She's been putting together this report that Macron's wife is actually a man that transitioned. You know this? So
I don't follow it, but
okay. So that was her thing. Like, she worked on that for months, and she was like, "Oh, she's a man." Blah 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 blah. 2 days ago or 3 days ago, she went on her show and said, "You can't make this stuff up," that someone from the White House called to let her know, or to ask her to please stop talking about that topic, because Russia is not willing to negotiate about Ukraine until Candace Owens stopped talking about Macron's wife. Like, how delusional can a person be to think that global geopolitics depends on your stupid conspiracy theories on your irrelevant show with your poisonous, malicious opinions based on zero?
The thing I've always wondered, by the way, is like, what, with people that have these kind of theories, I know they have it also about, like, Michelle Obama and others, like, why does it really matter that much?
Who cares?
Like, who cares?
So she'll do anything for relevancy. And I'm telling you, I'm being honest with you, like it really does confuse me because you watch some of her old videos. I was watching a video of her yesterday where she's talking to her guests and she said, it's unbelievable. Whatever goes wrong in the world, they blame Israel. If it doesn't rain for 3 days, they blame Israel. Why do they blame Israel? This was Candace Owens. And now, literally, that's what she's doing. She blames Israel for everything. It's totally crazy.
It's such an interesting question.
I think she's paid off. That's what I think. I think she's paid by Qatar.
You think she's paid off? Oh, interesting. It could be hard to know. Yes, gosh, there's a lot to unpack there with the whole Piers Morgan thing. I think that, yeah, you're right. He's kind of taken a bit of a sinister tone. And one of the things that he says that really grates me, and he's been saying this a lot recently, is he said, Israel's clearly going way overboard in Gaza because we know they can be precise when they want to. Look what they did with the pager attack with Hezbollah. Look how targeted they were in Iran. So why can't they do that in Gaza, he says in his cozy armchair in his London studio. And it's like, I wish someone would get onto show, and I don't know whether he's being genuine when he's saying that. That's given the benefit of the doubt, I assume he is. Does he not understand that in the case of Hezbollah, Israel has been working on this for many, many years. They came across a rare opportunity that is totally miraculous, where they discovered they're purchasing these pages. They managed to get into the system, but those opportunities don't come about every single day. With Iran, totally different story. Iran is not embedding all its missiles and nuclear facilities among civilians. So you basically either have a choice here. Either number one, Israel wants to limit non-combatant casualties, but it doesn't have an opportunity to in Gaza. Or option number two is Israel has a bloodlust against the Arabs of Gaza. And that's what he's basically saying.
And another thing that he loves to say, which is so ridiculous, he says, how many innocent people died in Gaza? And so his Israeli guest says, we don't know yet. And he goes, well, how do you know how many Hamas terrorists you killed, but you don't know how many innocents you killed? Because we're targeting Hamas. We know when we take someone out that we took them out. That's our target. We don't know how many innocent people are killed because we're in the middle of a war. You think in World War II, they knew how many people were killed before the war ended? He's so dishonest.
And by the way, when he says, well, we're going off IDF figures on how many Hamas people we've killed, in every prior war with Israel against Hamas, the figures have been pretty much accurate. It turned out afterwards, once they calibrated it with other figures and other data. So, okay, we can't give 100% accuracy and certainty to any of this, but it basically comes down to the assumption of whether or not Israel has a bloodlust against killing as many Arabs as possible.
Right. Yeah. Whatever. You know what, dude? We're giving them way too much attention. Let's move on. Let's talk about Australia.
Yeah, I agree. Well, that was literally my next question on the on the agenda. Tell us about what happened with Australia. You had a speaking gig there, and you were barred from going in.
Yeah, can't make this stuff up, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I'm just a random dude on the internet. I'm not a politician. I'm not a celebrity. I'm just a random dude. And I was supposed to fly on Tuesday morning to give two keynotes, one in Melbourne, one in Sydney at a gala for Magen David Adom, which is an emergency first responders organization that, by the way, very much promotes coexistence. There are Arab volunteers, Jewish volunteers. They save Arabs, they save Jews. So there's nothing more beautiful if you are a believer in coexistence than Magen David Adom. But I was supposed to fly out on Tuesday, and Friday morning I got an email from the Australian government, which I had to read 5 times, honestly, because I could not believe my eyes, that said, basically, we are revoking your visa for your inflammatory Islamophobic tweets. And I'm like, what? And I look at their document that they sent and the tweets that they included in the document. They're just so ridiculous. Like, I said that there was no massacre in the humanitarian zone, even though the Washington Post reported that there was. Of course, the next day they redacted their statement and, admitted that there was no massacre in the humanitarian zone. And they've repeated that lie time and time again. I think it's happened like 5 times now where we massacred people in the humanitarian zone and it was completely made up. And there was no such massacre. There was not one single shot fired. It was just made up. And that's a post that I wrote that's inflammatory. Or when I said that radical Islam is a global plague, or when I said, the fear of a religion that breeds hundreds of millions of fundamentalist radicals that want the destruction of the West, to fear that religion is not something that's illogical, because a phobia is something that's irrational, illogical. To fear a religion, the data that we have from the Pentagon is that anywhere between 10 to 20% of Muslims globally are radicalized. So let's go with 10%. That's 180 million people. So if a religion, and before you say, oh, but they're just They have nothing to do with the religion. Well, what do Muslim terrorists yell when they blow themselves up? Allah Akbar. They're doing it in the name of Allah. So a religion that gives birth to 180 million people dedicated to the destruction of the West, and everything they do is in the name of Islam. How is that an irrational fear? So they quoted that and say, I'm an Islamophobe, blah, blah, blah. Ridiculous. So immediately I appealed the decision. I immediately got in touch with Mike Huckabee, the U.S. ambassador, with Israel's foreign minister, Gideon Sa'ar, with Israel's former ambassador to the UN, Erdan, and I went all the way up the diplomatic channels to get it reversed, the ambassador in Australia, everything. I then went to the media, and this thing went viral is an understatement. I mean, there were hundreds of articles about this.
So how long were you working on it before you went public to the media?
It was Friday morning. I didn't go to the media before Shabbat. I came back Saturday night and it was already public. Then I went to media. I wrote on Friday as it happened. I wrote my friend at Fox, but I told him, do not report it. I'm just letting you know what happened. I also wrote Douglas Murray and a couple of other people, but I told them, no one, do not talk about this yet. Came back and it got out. So by the time I came back from Shabbat, it was all over the place. Anyway, they did not reverse a decision. They doubled down on it. And, it was just a crazy thing. I was devastated, like not devastated for my own personal interests, but devastated at the fact that an American Jew, an American Israeli Jew, can be banned from Australia for his opinions on Israel. Like this is 1930s level anti-Semitism.
Yeah. Do you know who was responsible for the ban?
Yeah, well, Tony Burke was responsible, but what it led to it is that some small Twitter account that, of course, is run by a Jew, a self-hating Jew, a couple of days before it was revoked, someone sent me their tweet saying, Zionist genocide supporter Hillel Fuld coming to Australia. Please, everyone, contact immigration. Here's a report of all his tweets that are inflammatory, blah, blah, blah. And everyone said to me, they're like a stupid little Twitter account. Don't worry about it. But apparently they got on someone's radar. And This morning, I got a Google alert that there were about, I think, 20 or 30 articles this morning comparing the ban of Hillel Fuld to the ban of Kanye West. Because me and Kanye, we're brothers. Like the guy's a freak. He put out a song called Heil Hitler. And I said that there was no massacre and those two things are comparable. So in these articles everywhere, Rolling Stone, it was written everywhere saying that Tony Burke said that the ban of Kanye West is similar to the ban of Hillel Fuld. Like you can't make this stuff up. It's crazy.
Oh my God. I'm so sorry about that. But then of course, you found there was a bit of a silver lining all of this afterwards, right?
100%. So this is something that, a story that happened to me in high school. In high school, one of the graduates of my school was a guy named Nachshon Waxman, and he was kidnapped by Hamas back then. And being that he was a graduate of our school, like we all gathered to pray and, hope and pray for his safe return. And they had a rescue mission that failed and he was killed. And that was like a real crisis for our faith. Like as kids, we spent 3 days praying all day long and then he's killed. It's like, God, you didn't hear our prayers. And our rabbi in high school quoted Nachshon Waxman's father that at the funeral said, it's not that God didn't hear our prayers. He heard our prayers and he said no, right? And so the concept that sometimes our prayers, we're praying for the wrong thing. And so I was praying for them to reverse the decision. Little did I know that a few days later, the Iranian war was going to break out. And if I had been in Australia, I'd be stuck in Australia when my kids are in bomb shelters, shielding themselves from ballistic missiles. Like, thank God I didn't go, So that's the way God, sometimes you understand why he does things, sometimes you don't. But in this case, it became very clear that I was asking for the wrong thing.
Yeah. Wow. It's a powerful thing to always bear in mind in life when things are a little bit turbulent. Lastly, Hillel, what do you sort of see coming down the tracks for Israel? What need to be Israel's priorities? What need to be our priorities as Israel activists? What's coming next?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the victory in Iran really did change many things. It changed internally. Many of the people that were super anti-Netanyahu have kind of gotten over that a little bit and are more supportive of him. At least they were in the Iran operation. But I think that it changes the dynamic of everything because now, which is what Bibi said when he quoted the verse, God gives his nation strength and then and then blesses us with peace because peace comes from strength, not from weakness. And pre-Iran thing, there were a lot of people and nations that were like, Israel's not really what it used to be. And now it's clear that we are, and then some. So I think, now there's a lot of talk about the Abraham Accords, whether it's Lebanon, Syria. I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up, right? Like a month ago, 3 months, it's crazy, right? Lebanon, Syria, Saudi Arabia, and other countries. So, the Abraham Accords are incredible, this messianic stuff. But our top priority, obviously, is to get our hostages back and make sure that Hamas is no longer a threat on our borders. And that's going to happen. We just, we hope that, as few casualties as can be happen until we achieve that victory. But, we're there. We're very close. Hezbollah's done. Iran's done. The Houthis will be done soon. Hamas is done. We have to get our hostages back. That's really our top priority right now.
And I've heard that there's been reports that Netanyahu has said he's looking to becoming open again on two-state solution, perhaps as you didn't see that? That's what I saw reported. I think it was in Israel Hayom. And I was wondering, is that maybe like he was just saying, he kind of giving like I'll look at that so it could be something to bring in Saudi Arabia. Do you think that, would this be something he'd ever, because that goes against what he's been saying for the last few months.
Forget Netanyahu. The two-state solution, it's just so funny. This is just another example, like two-state solution, right? Let's just say, for argument's sake, hypothetically speaking, Israel was like, okay, let's have a two-state solution. Who on the Palestinian side would agree to live alongside Israel? There's never been a Palestinian leader that says, okay, Israel has a right to exist. Let's live alongside them. They never said that. In their charter, they say they want no Israel. What does from the river to the sea mean? It means no Israel. So all of this talk about two-state solution is just ridiculous because there is no two states. There's Israel, and that's it. There is no other side that wants to live alongside Israel. So it didn't even have a starting point. It's just a ridiculous
Israel Hayom reported that there was a four-way call between Trump, Rubio, Netanyahu, and Ron Dermer, and they reached consensus on fundamental principles. Number one, Gaza hostilities to end within weeks. Number two, multiple nations will accept numerous Gaza inhabitants. Number three, Abraham Accord expansion. Number four, Israel declare its willingness for future resolution of under a two-states concept contingent on Palestinian Authority reforms. And then number five was US will acknowledge limited Israeli sovereignty in Judea and Samaria.
Let me ask you a very simple question. How would anyone know that? How would anyone know that such a phone call took place? Who on that phone call would have leaked it? Give me a break. There's no Israel Hayom could not possibly know Ron Dermer leaked it. Who went to Israel Hayom with that information? Like when it's the cabinet or the Knesset or the government, maybe one person, like a four-way call between Ron Dermer, Trump, Rubio, and Netanyahu. Who could have possibly leaked that? So I don't buy when I read these things. I have to ask myself, like, what are the chances that, like, if hypothetically speaking, one of them would have leaked it? Do you think they would have gone to leak it to Israel Hayom? Like, it's such a ridiculous thing. So like, I don't buy any of that stuff. There is no way Netanyahu would agree to two-state solution. No way.
Right. Okay, that's an interesting point. It said, according to a source familiar with the discussion substance, all these things, right. But I hear that. I really hear that. And I think that's an important point for reporters to bear in mind, that, veracity of sources is really important. Hillel Fuld, thank you so much as ever for your exceptional clarity, wisdom, and commentary on the big issues of the day. It's such a pleasure talking to you and learning from you. And I hope we can have more of these conversations. I'm so excited to share with you something that I've been working on for a while. We've just taken JTV content to the next level. Introducing JTV Plus, a new platform streaming exclusive content created and handpicked by me. Get ready for jaw-dropping documentaries, exclusive interviews, insider access, and so much more. JTV Plus brings you captivating stories that will shock and inspire you. Stories that, honestly, I'm discovering for the first time too. From Israel to Jewish history to Judaism, it's all there. In exclusive interviews, you'll hear guests open up about things they've never shared publicly before. Plus, I'll take you behind the scenes where I get a lot more personal with you. By joining JTV Plus, you're not just joining an exclusive community, you're partnering with me to help JTV reach new heights. Just search j-tv.plus and join our exclusive community today. There's a link in the video description. I'll see you there.